The Windsor Archives, a place of dust, secrets, and the ghost of monarchs past. Few venture into its labyrinthine depths, where the weight of history presses down like the stones of Windsor Castle itself. But on one unremarkable evening, Prince Edward, the Queen's youngest son, did. His unannounced arrival sent ripples of unease through the staff. No press, no fanfare, just a grim-faced prince, determined to unearth something long buried. He moved with a purpose that brooked no argument. His authority a shield against the unspoken questions that hung in the air. What drove him to this clandestine search? What truth lay hidden within those forgotten ledgers and private journals? The answer, as it turned out, was a tiara. Not just any tiara, mind you, the Queen Mother's tiara. A dazzling confection of diamonds, each facet reflecting a century of royal dramas. It was more than mere jewelry. It was a symbol of continuity, a shimmering representation of the crown's enduring power. For decades, it had been a fixture at state occasions, gracing the heads of queens and princesses, a silent testament to the enduring legacy of the House of Windsor. But the Queen Mother, that formidable matriarch, had never truly relinquished control. Even in death, her influence lingered, her hand reaching from beyond the grave to shape the destiny of the monarchy. Edward's quest led him to a vault deep within the archives, a chamber of hushed reverence where the most sensitive documents were stored. There, amidst the yellowed parchments and faded ink, he found it, a velvet case, unassuming yet radiating an almost palpable aura of importance. And sealed to the case, an envelope. The stark inscription, Appendix Windsor, to be opened upon heirloom inquiry, left no room for doubt. This was no casual family note. This was a royal directive, a final decree from the Queen Mother herself. Those present later recounted that Edward's demeanor changed the moment he finished reading. The color drained from his face, his hands tightened around the paper as if it were a live wire. He immediately demanded a private audience, bypassing protocol with a vehemence that hadn't been seen in decades. The palace buzzed with nervous energy. Whispers spread like wildfire, fueled by speculation and fear. A directive from the Queen Mother, a condition attached to the tiara. A name that no one expected. That name, as the world would soon learn, was Catherine, the Princess of Wales, the woman who had captured the hearts of the nation with her grace, her poise, and her unwavering dedication to duty. But why her? Why Catherine and not Camilla, the Queen Consort? The woman who had stood by Charles's side through thick and thin, the woman who had earned her place through decades of service. The answer, it seemed, lay in the Queen Mother's vision of the crown's soul. She had seen something in Catherine, a quality that transcended mere lineage or position. She had recognized in her a strength, a resilience, and a quiet dignity that she believed was essential to the survival of the monarch. But the Queen Mother's decree was not simply a matter of sentimentality. It was a carefully calculated move. A strategic intervention designed to safeguard the crown against the turbulent currents of the modern world. She had foreseen the challenges that lay ahead, the internal divisions, the external pressures, and she had chosen Catherine as the anchor, the steadying force that would keep the ship of state from capsizing. Her words, etched in ink on that fateful document, were not merely a suggestion, they were an order, a final command that echoed through the corridors of power, reshaping alliances and challenging the very foundations of the monarchy. The Queen Mother was gone, but her voice still resonated. Her will still held sway. And as Camilla remained in the dark, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift that was about to rock her world, Catherine stood on the precipice of destiny, poised to inherit not just a tiara, but the very soul of the crown. The decree ignited a firestorm. Courtiers scrambled, advisors whispered, and the weight of centuries threatened to crush the delicate balance of power. Camilla, upon learning the news, retreated into a stony silence. The vibrant, ever-present Queen Consort vanished behind the walls of her private apartments, leaving only a void where her influence once held sway. It was a calculated move, a queen withdrawing her favor, a subtle yet powerful display of displeasure that sent tremors through the palace. Catherine, summoned to the Blue Room, that chamber of royal reckoning, found herself facing Prince Edward and the velvet box that held not just a tiara, but a destiny. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, the unspoken expectations of a nation, the lingering shadow of the Queen Mother, all converging in that single fateful encounter. Her reaction? A quiet, almost whispered acceptance. If this was the Queen Mother's wish, she would not deny it. But there was no joy, no triumphalism, only a profound sense of responsibility, a burden she now carried on her slender shoulders. The news leaked. Of course, how could it not? The palace, a gilded cage of secrets and whispers, could never truly contain a revelation of this magnitude. The press pounced, the public reacted, and the monarchy braced itself for the inevitable fallout. Headlines screamed betrayal, loyalty was questioned, and the future of the crown hung precariously in the balance. Catherine, thrust into the eye of the storm, remained a picture of serene composure. But behind that carefully constructed facade, a battle raged. A battle between duty and desire, between the expectations of the crown and the longings of her own heart. Camilla, meanwhile, launched a counter-offensive. Denied access to the vault where the tiara had been stored, she turned to Charles, seeking his support, his protection. She reminded him of her years of service, her unwavering loyalty, her sacrifices for the crown. But Charles, caught between his love for Camilla and his respect for the Queen Mother's wishes, hesitated. And in that hesitation, Camilla saw the truth. She was no longer the undisputed queen, her position no longer secure. The High Council fractured. Anne and Edward stood firm, unwavering in their support of the Queen Mother's decree. Andrew, ever the opportunist, remained non-committal, gauging the shifting winds of power. Camilla, desperate, resorted to legal maneuvering, attempting to reclassify the tiara as state regalia, a move that would strip it of its personal legacy. But her efforts were thwarted. The Queen Mother had foreseen this, had meticulously crafted her decree to withstand any challenge. Cornered, Camilla issued an ultimatum: contest the Queen Mother's decree publicly, or she would withdraw from all upcoming ceremony. It was a high-stakes gamble, a desperate attempt to regain control. But Charles, weary of the drama, the infighting, the constant pressure, remained silent. And in that silence, Camilla understood she was on her own. Margaret's letters, however, offered a different kind of ammunition, a ghost from the past, whispering a prophecy that couldn't be ignored. The girl with the Windsor eyes. She called Catherine, and the phrase sent shivers down the spines of those who read it. Margaret, often dismissed as a tragic figure, a royal rebel, had possessed a keen insight, a piercing understanding of the family dynamic. Her words, unearthed from the depths of Balmoral, suggested that Catherine's destiny had been foreseen long before she even entered the royal fold. Anne, ever the pragmatist, the no-nonsense princess, was the one who stumbled upon Margaret's musings. Initially, it was a matter of historical curiosity, a desire to delve into the mind of her aunt. But as she read, she realized that these were not mere ramblings. They were coded observations, veiled prophecies about a future she was now living. She does not want the crown, which is why it will want her, Margaret wrote, and the line resonated with an almost chilling accuracy. The letters revealed a secret alliance, a shared vision between the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret. They had both seen something in Catherine, a quiet strength, a resilience, a capacity for empathy that they believed was essential to the survival of the monarchy. They had watched her from afar, admired her grace, and recognized in her the qualities that would make her a worthy successor. For Catherine, the weight of this revelation was almost unbearable. It was no longer just about duty. It was about destiny, about fulfilling a role that had been preordained for her. She retreated into her study, poring over the letters, trying to understand the expectations that had been placed upon her. William, sensing her turmoil, gathered their children and read the letters aloud, ensuring that they too understood the significance of this moment. The media, of course, went into overdrive. Leaked details of the Queen Mother's letter, Margaret's prophecy, and the decision to bestow the tiara upon Catherine sent shockwaves across the globe. Headlines screamed betrayal. Analysts debated legacy. And Camilla faced the cameras alone, forced to smile while wearing pearls that now felt like iron chains. The Times ran the story at dawn, a private royal directive handwritten by the Queen Mother, naming Catherine as the exclusive heir. Within minutes, the media landscape exploded. They weren't just reporting, many were rejoicing, proclaiming Catherine the rightful legacy bearer. Others recoiled in outrage, calling it a slight to Camilla's decades of loyalty. Public sentiment turned with a force no advisor could have anticipated. Social media crowned Catherine as the chosen royal, a title that spread with hashtags and viral fervor. The irony was sharp. While Catherine had done nothing to seek the spotlight, history, it seemed, had pushed her into it, and in the shadow of this rising adoration stood Camilla. Her silence, once a symbol of regal composure, was now read as isolation. Her pearls, once symbols of grace, now seemed like shackles of a fading era. Camilla swiftly canceled 2 major engagements, citing unforeseen emotional toll, but few were convinced. It wasn't grief that silenced her, it was humiliation. Advisors attempted to unify the message, but their efforts fell apart beneath the weight of one critical failure. No one could refute the Queen Mother's words. They had been written, signed, and confirmed. The Crown was facing a battle it could not win with protocol or press releases. And all the while, the silence from Catherine's side only deepened the mystique. She had said nothing, yet her presence loomed everywhere, on screen, in conversation, in the frightened glances exchanged within the palace walls. Then, without announcement, Catherine stepped out wearing the tiara, and the monarchy's path was changed forever. It wasn't a coronation, but it felt like one. As Catherine walked into Westminster wearing the Queen Mother's diamond tiara for a diplomatic ceremony, the entire chamber rose to its feet. Cameras flashed, diplomats wept, and somewhere deep inside the palace, Camilla reportedly turned away from the television and shut the door. No announcement had been made, no hint dropped to the press. The appearance of the tiara came not as a planned unveiling, but as a moment of deliberate silence that echoed louder than any proclamation. The Commonwealth Gala had been scheduled for months, a formal gathering of heads of state, a celebration of diplomatic unity. But from the instant Catherine entered the room, all protocol dissolved. Conversation ceased, glasses still mid-air, and then without cue, every guest stood. The tiara was instantly recognized, not just for its brilliance, but for the memory it carried. It hadn't been seen in public since the Queen Mother's final state dinner. Now reborn on Catherine's head, it returned as more than an heirloom. It was a message. In hushed voices, foreign dignitaries offered private congratulations, many whispering variations of the same phrase. It feels right. One South African official was overheard calling it a return to soul, while a Canadian delegate declared it a reconnection with the Crown's conscience. It wasn't about style or fashion, it was about symbolism, and the message was unmistakable. The Queen Mother's wishes had triumphed, not through force, but through quiet, sovereign certainty. The sight of Catherine, graceful, composed, untouched by scandal, wearing that specific piece in that specific room, reshaped the mood of an entire institution. It was legacy incarnate. Amidst the ceremony, in a moment few noticed at first, Prince George leaned over and whispered to Charlotte, "That's Granny's crown." Simple words, but devastating in their honesty. Even a child could feel what others tried to politicize. In the royal viewing chamber back at Windsor, Camilla remained silent. Aides later confirmed she had watched the event alone. When asked by press afterward for a statement, her office declined. There was nothing to say, not anymore. Edward, watching from the gallery beside Anne, was approached by a senior envoy who asked whether the Queen Mother's instructions had been political in nature. Edward replied quietly, "It was never about politics. It was never about titles. It was about the heart that guides it." That one sentence shared hours later across global headlines reframed the entire narrative. The tiara wasn't a symbol of hierarchy, it was a compass. And in the eyes of those who had lived through 3 generations of royal storms, it had now found its true north. But the storm had not passed because a second item was discovered in the envelope Edward found. And this one had implications far beyond jewelry. While the world debated the tiara, Edward remained silent about the second envelope, marked addendum, eyes only, High Council, It was tucked beneath the tiara's casing. When opened, it revealed a stunning twist. The Queen Mother hadn't just named Catherine as recipient of the tiara, she'd outlined a future role, one that bypassed Camilla entirely. What lay inside that addendum was not ceremonial, it was strategic. A vision penned by the Queen Mother for what she called the sole protector of royal continuity. And at the heart of it, again, was Catherine, not as consort, not even as queen, but as something unprecedented, archival, guardian of the royal line's spiritual legacy. It was a role not recognized in any current charter, yet deeply rooted in traditions older than the modern monarchy itself. A protector not of power, but of memory. A silent overseer of the unseen history, entrusted with the stories, symbols, and truths too sacred for public hand. This was not a title that could be inherited. It had to be chosen, and she had been chosen by a woman long gone, whose will still pierced through royal chambers with haunting clarity. The addendum made reference to an obscure file appendix Clarion stored, not in London, but under lock and seal at Holyrood within Princess Anne's jurisdiction. That document, still unopened at the time, reportedly contains instructions regarding the transference of spiritual regalia, personal correspondences, and uncirculated codicils belonging to Queen Elizabeth II herself. In a move that could no longer be dismissed as oversight, Camilla's name was once again entirely absent. Anne, however, was mentioned by title and tasked explicitly with delivering the second seal to Catherine, marking the final handover of hidden custodianship. Edward said nothing to the press. He didn't need to. His silence was a shield, not just for Catherine, but for the entire House of Windsor. The implication was thunderous if the Queen Mother had not trusted Camilla with the legacy of memory. What else had she kept from her? And now, with this new role assigned, Catherine was no longer just a symbol of stability. She had become the gatekeeper of the crown's unseen truth. Advisors were shaken. Insiders reevaluated loyalty. Even Charles, bound by blood and duty, found himself in unfamiliar territory. For 72 hours, the king said nothing. No statements, no audiences, no comments. Then suddenly, he summoned both Anne and Catherine to a private meeting at Clarence House. No record was kept of what was discussed. No photographs released, but sources close to the chamber confirmed one thing. Charles did not contest the Queen Mother's vision. And so the monarchy pivoted again, without pageantry, without press. The legacy of Elizabeth Margaret and the Queen Mother was now tethered to a woman they had watched in silence, shaped from a distance, and entrusted with far more than the world ever imagined. But just when the monarchy thought the revelations were over, one more name entered the story, and it would leave them breathless. Inside a faded letter never before revealed to the public, the Queen Mother's last handwritten note pinned from her bed at Royal Lodge held just 3 words: "Protect her, Catherine." And those 3 words now haunt the crown. Because they weren't just instruction, they were prophecy, and every move made since has fulfilled its step by heartbreaking step. The letter was discovered unexpectedly tucked deep within a folio of Princess Margaret's personal archive. Long thought to contain only trivial reflections and holiday notes, it was Anne who authorized the review, never suspecting that the final piece of this legacy would be buried not in ceremony, but in secrecy. Its authenticity was verified within hours by royal calligraphy experts who confirmed the script as the Queen Mother's unmistakable hand. No date, no preamble, just the crown seal at the top, and beneath it, those 3 words: deliberate, personal, and eternal. Protect her, Catherine. It wasn't a formality. It was a lifeline cast forward beyond the reach of doubt. It is believed to be the final message the Queen Mother ever wrote, drafted just days before her passing. She had not sent it. She had not spoken of it. She had simply trusted it would be found by the right hands at the right moment. And when it was finally placed in Catherine's palms, the weight of it shattered her. According to those present, she wept openly, clinging to the page as if it held the last heartbeat of a woman she never truly knew. Her voice, fragile yet defiant, whispered the words no one could unhear. "Why me?" And the room went still. There was no answer that could ease her, only the silent acknowledgement that this was no longer about choice. It was destiny, written not in ambition, but in sacrifice. William stepped forward, arms wrapped around the woman now carrying not only the hopes of a nation, but the silent burdens of its past. "We will fulfill it together," he promised, his voice steady, his eyes fierce. No press cameras, no headlines, just a quiet vow between husband and wife, monarch and guardian. Meanwhile, Edward oversaw the placement of the letter into a sealed glass case displayed within the royal private archives, a place where only a select few would ever enter. Beneath the glass, a single inscription was etched by his hand: "Our New Covenant." No further explanation was given. None was needed. Every figure in that room understood the significance. It wasn't about succession anymore. It was about preservation. As factions within the monarchy continued to realign, one truth had settled like ash. Across every chamber of the palace, the Queen Mother had chosen Catherine long before anyone else did. Not because of title, not because of protocol, but because she saw what others had not. And now, the letter had become the final thread tying past to present, hope to legacy. The storm had passed, the ghosts had spoken, and Catherine now stood not just as heir, but as the keeper of memory. And as the crown evolves, one legacy remains untouched. The soul of the monarchy now rests where the Queen Mother intended, on the head of a woman who never asked for it, but who carries it with grace, memory, and fire.